Hi, welcome back to my channel where I am taking a pantser mindset and switching it to a planner mindset. And today I want to talk to you about marketing. So as much as we all want our books to be just what we want them to be, the truth is we also want readers. And to get readers, we have to market our books. Now, whether you are self-publishing or you want to go the traditional route, doesn't matter. The first thing you need to do in marketing is to pick a title. Now, up until now, if you've been following along, my working title has been, "This is not a fantasy novel." This was sort of a tongue-in-cheek thing that I just set out there because I wanted to write a non-fantasy adult novel and I wanted to plan it for the first time. 3 things that I had never done. And the reason why I wanted to do that was so that I could challenge myself to do something that I hadn't done before, which is fine, but that's all about me. And it actually doesn't help my reader know what the story's about. So I've decided that I really need to have a new title. I want to take you through that process, and I'm going to use my 12 years of marketing to show you how I'm going to try and pick a new working title. Might not be the final title, but a new working title that is better and that better describes what my book is about. So there are different ways to approach title writing, and maybe you haven't sat down and thought of this, but I'm going to break it down for you and show you some examples to start with. So the first, and possibly the most, and probably the most obvious one to do, would be a character in your story. So just to pick a character, probably the most important character, either the chief antagonist or the chief protagonist of your story, and to use that. So one, Dracula. Dracula is, or the Little Prince, the Princess Bride. Now this one is the title of a character. Her name is actually Buttercup, but everything about her is what she's the inciting incident of the story. So that sort of thing, like also Emma, Jane Austen, or Jane Eyre by the Brontes. So like I said, you might also do the antagonist of the stories, especially if that antagonist is a force, such as the Stepford Wives or The Mist, Stephen King, or famously It. So it's just to pick a force or a character in the story is a great way to pick your title. The problem with something like It, I mean, everybody knows it now, but if you Google It, I'm going to show you how to find out how Googling will help you pick your title. But if you Google It, you're not going to find Stephen King's It necessarily. You might now because there have been several movies and it's a pretty well-known book. But when it first came out, if it came out in the Google age and you Googled It, you weren't going to find it. See what I did there? Whereas if you Googled the Stepford Wives, chances are you're going to find the Stepford Wives because there's nothing else you're going to find by Googling that. So that is something to keep in mind as well. So that's the first way to pick a title. Your character or a force that is key, either your chief antagonist or your chief protagonist there. So if you don't want to do that, the next thing to do would be to pick the setting. So this is actually a really cool one, and this is one of my favorite ones. Actually, so classic is Picnic at Hanging Rock, or Neil Gaiman's The Ocean at the End of the Lane. It tells you where it's set. It's pretty great, and if your setting is like a character in the story, then it'd be pretty great to do that. And that oftentimes we see this in series as well. So the Discworld series, which I'll get to later, talk about one of Terry Pratchett's titles, but the Discworld series, obviously the Discworld is the name of those books that happen in the Discworld. So you know that even if you haven't read that story before, it's going to be taking place in that cool world that he created. We've got antagonist, protagonist, either a force or a character name or the title, the titular character, such as the Princess Bride and we have setting. Then another way to look at it is to actually tell your plot. Now, I love this as well, and there's classic ways of doing this, like Alice's Adventures in Wonderland tells you exactly what this book's going to be about, or Lewis May Alcott's The Chase, or more recently, the Fairyland series by Catherine M. Valentine. So the girl who circumnavigated Fairyland in a ship of her own making tells you basically what's going to happen in the book. This is the sequel to that, which is The Girl Who Fell Beneath Fairyland and Led the Revels There. So there is a way to do that. Another way to do that is pretty classic. Dahl used it a lot, such as the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory series, Charlie and the Glass Elevator, and very famously the Harry Potter series. This is the last book, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, but obviously Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. It tells you Harry Potter is going to face this thing. So you know what the book's going to be about. And it's also really nice if you're writing a series, because it tells you which one in the series you are while having the series title in there. So this is the Harry Potter series, Harry Potter and the, again, using a character as the name of the series, and then the antagonist as the either the antagonistic force or a force for good, such as Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, because the Order of the Phoenix is obviously the good guys, but it does have that sort of overarching, tells you what the book's about. Then you can get a little bit more mysterious, such as A Wrinkle in Time. Now this is sort of, well, it's actually extremely mysterious. So if you've read A Wrinkle in Time by Madeleine L'Engle, a wrinkle is an element that they use to move through time, but that's not obvious from the title. So the title, once you've read the book, makes sense, but while you're reading the book, it does not. And there's a lot like that out there, which are really, really interesting. So another one like that would be Shawshank Redemption by Stephen King. So this one's a little clearer because we know what Shawshank is and we know what redemption is. So we know that there's going to be some kind of redemption at Shawshank. Whereas A Wrinkle in Time is like, well, what's that going to be? I don't know what that means. That doesn't tell me a lot about the book. Whereas this tells me a great deal, but it's still ambiguous and it still doesn't give a lot, as opposed to Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I know Charlie's going to a chocolate factory, otherwise why would it be in the title? Or The Girl Who Fell Through Fairyland, or Fell Beneath Fairyland and Led the Revels There. Well, she's going to fall beneath Fairyland and lead the revels there. Whatever revels are, she's going to lead them. So, the plot. Another way to do it is to focus on, especially for a mystery or a thriller, such as Fight Club. Well, you know they're going to start a fight club. There's going to be a club of fighting. Fight Club. You hear me talk about that a lot. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I don't know that you know it's a book from the title, but you know that there's going to be a guide in here for hitchhikers to get through the galaxy. Kind of lets you know we're not in your everyday sort of thing. Or Heart-Shaped Box by Joe Hill. This one is another one, like obviously the Heart-Shaped Box is going to be key in this book. You're not going to call it the Heart-Shaped Box if the Heart-Shaped Box sits on someone's dresser and is described for 10 seconds or 10 sentences even in the book, and that's it. You know, the Heart-Shaped Box is going to be a significant part of this. Or The Colorado Kid, which is actually a person that does, but not a character in the story. The story is actually about the mystery of the Colorado Kid and what happened to the Colorado Kid. So that is like a object. So it's almost the MacGuffin is on the cover. The MacGuffin becomes the title in these ones. And then we get even more ambiguous, such as Animal Farm. Well, what kind of farms are there that aren't animal farms? I suppose there are like vegetable farms, but this is an animal farm. But that doesn't tell me, and if you've read this book, it is not just a, you know, a nice sort of romp in the country. It's pretty dark. So it's another one, A Clockwork Orange. Very ambiguous. I have absolutely no idea what this book is about going into it, but it is brilliant and such a memorable title. Terry Pratchett is great at titles. The Weird Sisters is a Discworld novel, and obviously this is again using sort of characters, but also being a little bit ambiguous here. And then this one has been really popular on Netflix right now, Lock and Key, another Joe Hill. So we can see by the way we've spelt lock that it's not a regular lock. So that asks questions, and but it's very ambiguous and we don't know what it's going to be about. So ambiguous titles are okay, but again, if you Google that Lock and Key, you're going to get this book. It's easy to remember. You're going to get this book, but you're not going to get like a locksmith, because unless Google tries to correct your spelling, because we're spelling it different. Same with the Colorado Kid. You're not going to get the city in Colorado. You're going to get this book because it's called The Colorado Kid. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. You're going to get this book. You want to be careful if you're not writing something, like if you're writing something that's a sort of how-to book in your book, if that how-to book exists, you probably want to be careful, because you don't want a how-to book coming up for your novel. And the heart-shaped box, I suppose you could get a heart-shaped box, so maybe that one isn't good so much, but again, there's enough there. It's not like It, where you're not going to get anything. But probably one of the best ones is the girl who fell beneath fairyland and led the rebels there. That's so clear with that. But that's great for a YA title. That's not going to work for a mystery book. A mystery book, you're going to want something a little more ambiguous. You're going to want something a little bit scarier, and that evokes those images. And so that is also part of the marketing. It's already covered the different kinds of titles there are, and there are so many different kinds. But more than that, a title needs to tell the reader what kind of story they're going to get, and that we have to start thinking about genre. So to show you this by examples, I'm going to take Alice in Wonderland. And the reason I'm taking Alice in Wonderland, it is one of those books that has been just retold so many times. I've got some examples here and some I'll just pop on the screen here, but I want to show you how changing the title changes what the story is going to be about. So the original, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, which is actually what it's called. It's not called Alice in Wonderland. It's called Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, Lewis Carroll. This title tells us very clearly we are going to follow a girl named Alice and her adventures in a place called Wonderland. Wonderland lets us know that this place is not real. We are having a fantasy adventure story. Clear, cut, easy. So recently, Christina Henry retold this story, and she simply called it Alice. Now, what does this tell us? Alice is, you can tell by the cover, like this little girl on the cover looks creepy bunny rabbit in black. And it also says, beware the claws that catch. So we kind of can tell that it's going to be a bit of a scary story. And this one is really good, by the way. If you haven't read this one, you like Alice in Wonderland, it's really good. Kind of misses out on the false ending, but otherwise it's a really good book. So it's another one. Now here's another one. This is Marissa Meyer. You might know from like the Cinder series. So this is Heartless, which is a sort of prequel of Alice in Wonderland. And this one also is very good. It is a decline story. And you can kind of tell that it's going to be Alice in Wonderland by the imagery on the cover, but also Heartless gives us sort of a hint that hearts are going to be lost and broken and that sort of thing. So negative romance we're kind of getting from this, as opposed to this one. This one is also a little bit darker than the original Alice in Wonderland, which is younger child, but not as creepy as that one. And then we've got Frank Fenner's The Looking Glass Wars, right? So this can tell us this is going to be, epic. It's going to be there's war, this is going to be a different retelling. Another Alice in Wonderland that I don't have in front of me is Alice in Zombieland, which, because everybody knows Alice Adventures in Wonderland, Alice in Zombieland, okay, it's going to be an Alice retelling, but there are zombies. And and this sort of brings me to, this is done a lot. So another great example, I don't have the books in front of me, but another great example of retelling and changing the title to tell us that the book is going to do something different is Pride and Prejudice. So Pride and Prejudice is a classic romance, and it tells us from the title that there are culture clash right there. And that Pride and Prejudice is going to be a clash. These are negative things. A retelling the Bridget Jones's Diary tells us that this is going to be a love story. It's more romantic comedy. It's going to be silly because the title implies that. Whereas Pride and Prejudice and Zombies tells us, while it might be funny, it is also going to include zombies. So you can see how the titles are telling us not only what the story is about, but the themes and the type of story we're going to be reading, which is crucial. More than anything else, your title needs to tell your reader what the story's feelings and story are going to be. You don't want people picking up your book thinking it's going to be a romance and it's a thriller, or vice versa, because they're going to put it down, because that's not what they want. So you need to set expectations that the book that they are reading is going to be what they're looking for and not something different, because you're just going to make people angry. So while you don't have to be quite as clear as these Fairyland books, which tells you the plot, you don't have to be that clear, and I would recommend maybe not doing that necessarily unless it's a comedy of some kind, because it's a little tongue-in-cheek to do that. But if you call something The Murder at Pembroke, which is another Pride and Prejudice one, then there better be a murder in it, and people aren't going to be picking it up thinking it's a sequel and it's another love story. So far in this video, we have talked about what you need to think about, the kind of title you want to have. And I would say these are all the different options. Go. Just write down a list of titles. Just start there. Just write them down, at least 10. Write as many as you can. All right? If you need help, look at the inspiration. Number 2, does this title that you are writing down tell your reader the kind of story to expect in this book? You really need to make sure you nail that. Once you've nailed that, then we are going to do a couple little tricks to make sure that your title gets found in a search on Amazon and Google. So let's head to the screen. So I've got a list in front of me of different titles and things that I want to do. So for me, for a crime novel, I'm not going to use my character's name. I don't think it's scary enough. I don't think it tells enough. So I'm going to skip that one. But one sort of idea I had was a social presence, which is sort of the antagonistic force. So I'm going to try that. Social presence. It's a little bit ambiguous, which is good for a crime novel. So I am getting some wiki stuff. So this is something people search for. Now here is a great tool. So if you select on here, this is called Related Keywords. This is a keyword tool. This is free. You can grab this. I've got it here on my toolbar. Downloads keywords everywhere. You can do that. It's super, super great. So it's telling me, you know, other things that people are searching for. And I might get an idea for a title there. I'm not this time. So that's, you know, it's not my favorite, but that's an idea. Now, the second thing I definitely want to do is I want to check out Amazon. Now, I'm not a huge Amazon fan, but they are the beast. So because I want to cost them money, I'm going to click the ad. Because that they have to pay for that, even though I'm not going to buy anything, because I'm not a nice person. Social presence. And this will tell me if there are other books with this title. And this is really important to me because I don't want to, I don't want people to get mislaid. But it looks like I'm cool. Looks like it's not a lot. But like I said, it's not my favorite. So let's head back to Google. Now you can use keyword tools. There's lots of them out there. I like just doing a search in Google and seeing what comes up. So maybe I'll do sort of the goal of my novel, which is death to social media. Sort of tells you right there what's happening. But again, is it a crime novel? Is this thriller? Do we, like, yes, I've got the word death in there, but yeah, see, it's not coming up with some stuff that I want. But let's see, is there... anything here? I'm getting a lot of like social media, branding, marketing stuff. I'm not getting a lot of novels. This is not something that is, which is kind of cool. I'm chill with that. Great, guys. Wonderful. So far in this video, we have made a list of the titles that we want to have. We have considered the different kinds of titles we could do. We have considered whether or not the title that we like conveys the story we're trying to tell and tells our reader what to expect in the first few pages. So they know that they're in for the kind of book you're writing and not something completely different. Imagine if Alice in Wonderland was called Alice Dies. Everybody who picked up this book would be disappointed because she doesn't die. Or if this book was called Wonderful Alice Story, or, you know, it was called Fluffy Bunnies or something, people would be like, ooh, fluffy bunnies. And then they read this book and it's like really dark and twisted and sick, actually. Awesome, but dark. What if Fight Club was called... what if Fight Club was called Can't Sleep? Or The Girl Named Marla? Or My Friend Bob? Everybody would be disappointed. Nobody would read that book. Fight Club. Ooh, that's interesting. They got the right audience when they said that, right? They got the right audience. So you need to get the right audience. When you're searching for it, is it something common? If you call your book something that everybody else has called their book, then your book is going to get lost in the mess. How many crime novels are called Prey? Well, Sanford has a whole slew of them, but there are other people that use those titles as well. And if they use them, they're going to get mistaken for a Sanford Prey novel, and then people are going to be disappointed. So you don't want your title to be too close to something else. You want your title to be unique, but searchable. Common language. You don't want it to be a made-up word. Obanuten was a great example of this. Great book, but when I picked it up, the first few chapters were, will she go to Obanuten? I'm like, well, obviously she's going to go to Obanuten. The title's called Obanuten. I mean, fantasy novels do this all the time. They give the title of the book some weird word that nobody has ever heard of, and it's completely made up. It means nothing to anybody, which means no one knows how to spell it. No one knows how to Google it. If Dracula was made up today, people would be like, how do you spell Dracula again? If they were looking for it on Amazon. And you don't want that. Now, people wrote books before Google search. However, this is a tool we have now, so we might as well use it. So, is your title easily searchable, easily identifiable, not going to get mixed up with someone else's, and the right thing for your book? We also want to think about the idea that, is it going to be too generic? Like if you call your book Emma or Rebecca, well, there are other books called Emma and Rebecca, and that's not going to work either. So you need to think about that when you're writing your title. We want it to be something unique, creative, that gives that goes, oh, that sounds really interesting, like Fight Club. A really great example of this is Gone Girl. I thought Gone Girl was a weird title before I read the book, but the more I think about it, the more brilliant I realize she was. So From the title Gone Girl, we get the idea that in this book, a female person will be gone. Pretty clear. She is the Gone Girl. But when you take it further, you realize that the reason she becomes Gone Girl is because she decides she no longer wants to be the cool girl, and she labels the cool girl trope. Could have called the book Cool Girl, but the problem with calling the book Cool Girl is it doesn't tell us anything about the story. It could be a girl at school who is, the popular kid, and it's her decline from popularity. Or it could be the girl at school who wants to be popular and it's her rise in popularity. None of these things have anything to do with the story, which is a woman who is gone. So Gone Girl takes that idea of the cool girl trope, which is very prevalent theme in Gone Girl, but it actually tells us what's going to happen in the book, if you see what I'm saying. So that's what we want to do. There's so much we want our title to do, and there's a reason why it's really hard to come up with a good title, and it's a reason why there are so few of them out there. But that doesn't mean you can't make an effort. Share your titles below, and let's get as much feedback as we can. It's so helpful to know how people are reacting to titles. So let people know how you're feeling about it. And if you'd like to follow along with my story, you can follow that on Patreon, and definitely subscribe here so you don't miss the next video. See you next time. Can I turn this around so it's not backwards? Apparently not. Catherine M. Valentine. So the girl who circumvented. So the girl. You cheat a little bit at NaNoWriMo. So before any more ado, let's go to the screen.